Hello and welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be doing a little Warcraft Rumble. We're going to talk about the Undead Minis. We're at the Undead Minis now. So we're going to take a look, starting with the leaders. Normally, I like to talk about the leaders in like an individual case here. The nice thing about the Undead roster of leaders is they are somewhat unique. Like, you have melee, you have ranged, and you have ranged. Ranged are kind of the same, but you kind of have a magical AoE ranged, and then you have a single target long ranged mini here. And then you have your melee fast charging mini here. So like, I really like Undead's diversity in leaders. Unlike the Horde, really it has a nice diverse roster. Same with BlackRock, has a decently diverse, and then you have Alliance, which had a decently diverse roster. I think Horde really needs a ranged mini, which I'm assuming will be Thrall when we get them. But anyways, we're here to talk about Undead today. We're going to start with Baron Rivendare. He's the first leader, and he's probably the strongest leader out of the Undead overall. What he does is he charges in on his horse. He has armored, so he takes reduced damage from physical attacks. Elemental damage, he deals elemental damage, which you wouldn't know that by looking at his mini. You would think he just deals normal physical damage. And then he's very fast. For his leader ability, he summons skeletons at any buildings you control, which as you take more of the map, he becomes stronger because you summon more free minis that just, at least take hits for you. The best talent with him, I would say, is the one that changes all your skeletons into mages. So they get the ice, the ice ranged attack, which freezes the enemy, which slows them down. Because the warriors tend to just walk in and die immediately, whereas the skeletal mages sometimes will at least get a couple hits in before they die, and if not, they will reinforce your push and give you some slow. That is helpful. He also has Death Pact, which he sacrifices a skeleton to heal himself, and then you also have Skeletal Frenzy, which is nearby allied skeletons gain Bloodlust. Overall, pretty much Chill of the Grave and Death Pact are probably your two goes. Chill of the Grave is by far the best, which is the one that makes them into skeletal mages. But he's a solid guy. He costs 4 gold. You throw him down, he charges in. He normally can get to a tower very quickly and take it before the enemy can react. So I like Baron Rivendare. Not bad. I wish he wasn't as fast as he is, because I like my tanks to tend to be kind of, I don't want to say slow, but medium speed, so they actually tank for my other minis. He kind of does that, but he tends to get too far ahead sometimes, and then he dies. That being said, we have Blood Mage Thalnos, which is very cool for a mini. What he does is he shoots out an elemental attack that does an AoE splash. He gains 1 level for every spell you cast until he dies, and then he resets. So if you drop 2 Thalnoses, if you get through your rotation and you actually drop 2 Thalnoses, the first one you drop, if you've casted a spell in between, will be stronger than the next. I like Thalnos. He's probably my second favorite for the minis. He costs 4 gold, as you can see up here. I would say his best talent is actually Bane. Because what it does is every time you play a spell, he increases his attack speed by 30% for 5 seconds. There's a lot of good synergies with certain spells. The humans have that arcane spell that you can cast for 1 gold, then 2 gold, then 3. It works really well with Blood Mage Thalnos. You also have Execute, that's just a good spell in general to use, which is a 3-cost one. You also have the Chain Lightning spell if you want to make a really cheap spell rotation to level up your Thalnos. You have that as well, which goes well with the arcane one. There's a lot of ways to get Thalnos really high level for very quickly, and his splash is just insane. If you get Bane, the talent Bane, which gives him 30% attack speed for 5 seconds when casting spells, you can essentially stagger your spells out and just level him up and then boost his attack speed and just have him just go ham on the enemy team. As long as there's someone tanking in front of him, he can do a lot of damage. The other talent that a lot of people like is Drain Life. I used to use it, but I'm not as big of a fan now because it doesn't scale well. He doesn't heal enough for what he should be getting healed from. And then he has another one that's called Dominance, with spells costing 4 or more, grant additional level. There's no reason to do that, though, because you just go Bane, and then you get, cheaper spells, like, as I said, and you can just level them up super quick anyways. Why pay for more to get double levels when you can increase his attack speed and still get the levels? Plus deal a ton of damage with spells. Anyways, super good, super unique play style, super cool mini. These are my 2 favorite leaders to use in Undead. If I want to fulfill a ranged role, I usually will go with Thalnos. If I want to do a more tanky role in map control role, I go with Rivendare. Last but not least, we're going to talk about Sylvanas. I think she's the weakest, and only because of her cost. If Sylvanas wasn't a 6 cost mini, I think she would be a lot stronger. If she was like 5 cost, I think she would be fine. I think for 6 cost, she doesn't do much. But anyways, let's talk about what she does do. So on death, she turns into a Banshee. Her leader ability is that all Undead and Horde minis gain 30% movement speed when they're near her, which means she needs to be on the field. That's weak in itself because she actually has to be on the field for it to work, and she costs 6 gold. It's just a weird thing. If it was like a 30% with her just at all times, I can understand. Also, movement speed can be detrimental and not always helpful. She does good damage. She has really good range, by the way. She's meant to sit in the back and just fire arrows off at her enemies. The issue is, again, she costs a lot. So you want to put something in front of her and make sure that she has some survivability in some sort of way. The best talent for her is definitely Black Arrow, in my opinion. That allows her arrow to become an AoE pierce that deals elemental damage. So essentially her shot, instead of just hitting something, it now shoots out a piercing arrow that everything around the enemy takes damage as well. It adds a little AoE to her. It's only in a line, but it is pretty strong. You have Banshee's Will, which is a good secondary one, which is on death. She screams and it stuns everything around her for 3 seconds, which allows her Banshee to pretty much guarantee a possession on an enemy unit. And then you have Forsaken Fury, which is near Horde and Undead minis gain Fury. Again, that would be better if she was a lower cost mini, because then you would actually, be able to put her on the field and get Fury on your units. All of her talents are useful. I like Black Arrow, and I think Banshee's Wail is generally more useful than Forsaken Fury, but they can be interchanged. Black Arrow is probably your overall just best choice for her talent, though. Anyways, that's all of the heroes. So let's talk about spells. They only have one, it's Cheat Death. Cheat Death is a good spell, but it's generally a good spell when you're using it on like raid bosses or some sort of hard boss that you need survivability with. So you drop this on your units and they can't go past 1 hit point, so they essentially just can take free damage. It is very powerful, but it's very niche situation, and it's stronger the higher level you are. So you want this to be as high level as your minis, if not higher, so they get more seconds of usage. The best talent by far with this is Vampirism. Essentially all the minis that are in the area get lifesteal, which allows them not to die, and then they might heal up enough where after the Cheat Death runs out, they might survive an additional attack, which gives them even more life. So that's very good for Cheat Death. You also have Apocalypse, which affected skeletons resurrect at your base when they die. So if you use Cheat Death on skeletons and then they die, they resurrect at your base and they can do like a secondary push. That's okay. Very niche, obviously, because you have to have skeletons. Generally, I don't use it for that. I use it with Vampirism to keep high-value minis alive. You also have Seal Fate, which affected minis gain Bloodlust, but they die at the end of the effect. Again, it's a weird situation, because generally with Cheat Death, I would say you want them to survive after Cheat Death ends. You want them to steal some life, last a little bit longer. But I could see in certain situations, Sealing Fate would probably be better than Apocalypse. So I would say Vampirism and then probably Seal Fate are your talent choices. I would go with Vampirism first, and then I would go with Sealed Sealed Fate, then Apocalypse if I were to pick the talents for this again, but I already have Vampirism and Sealed Fate. I've not upgraded this to Epic. I don't use Cheat Death that often, but there are a couple bosses that it is very useful on. Next, we're going to go through all the minis. I just generally do the minis as one. I could do them as tanks and range and da-da-da-da-da, but I think it's just easier to do them all, you know, in order that they are on the list. So we're going to start with Abomination, which is our big boy right here. Abomination is a very solid tank for 6 cost. That's the biggest issue with him, is his gold cost, but he is worth the gold cost. He's one of the few minis that's 6 gold that I would say is very worth the price. He has good amount of health, and he has a hook. So what he does is he moves very slow, he walks up in front of your group, and then when he comes into range of a ranged mini, he actually hooks it to him, and then AoE cleaves in front of him, hitting the ranged mini and then any other melee minis in range. Super good tank because he pulls the back line and kills them. That's why the Abomination is so useful. If you can throw a Frostwolf Shaman down for full 4 gold with the Abomination and give him armored, he just becomes an even better tank. But he's a really strong tank even without that combo. He has, you know, everyone has 3 talents. I would say his best talents is the Noxus Presence, which just adds poison stacks to everybody around him. Works good with poison builds. He also has Fresh Meat. After hooking a target, deal double damage on the next attack. That's a pretty solid one as well. And then you have Cannonball, which is on deploy, and at 50% health, stun nearby enemies for 5 seconds. Cannonball is more of a niche usage. I could see it being used in combo with a Frostwolf Shaman to try to get multiple usages, but I actually have not tried that, and I don't know if it would work. I don't know if once you trigger the 50%, if you heal them back up, if it triggers again. That actually has to be something I'd have to test, because if that is the case, that could actually be helpful. Otherwise, I would say the Poison talent is the best, and then Fresh Meat is probably your second best choice. Next, we're going to talk about our girl, the Banshee here. She's a solid defense unit. She's used in a lot of raids and higher tier gameplay. She's pretty much a unit you drop to stop an enemy. Like, if they drop an Abomination or another high cost value unit, you'll drop yours down to essentially steal it and counter it to push it away, push back against the enemy. Used in a lot of raids, as I said, in dungeons at higher levels and stuff. Pretty much that's all she does, though, is she possesses the unit. She moves in the lane forward, and then as soon as she sees the closest enemy, she will possess it. That's why you normally want to aim for high-cost units, so that you're paying 4 gold to get a 6 gold or 5 gold mini. If you take a 2 gold ghoul, she's probably not worth dropping. Her best talent is Will of the Necropolis, which is she just fully heals whatever she takes control of, which is, you know, if it's injured, you essentially gain a full health Abomination. Her other 2 talents aren't worth talking about, so I'm not even going to talk about them. It's pretty much Will of the Necropolis. Everything else is not worth your time. You only get them to get the extra levels later. So we're going to talk about Gargoyle next. Also a very good mini. It has one purpose, and that's to take towers and to kill bosses. It is a pretty strong mini for 4 gold. It has a good amount of health. It deals good double damage to towers, and it's armored. So it takes reduced damage from physical damage. If you pair this with a Fairy Dragon, it will give it, with the correct talent, it will give it resistance as well, which makes it just super tanky. The only negative side to that is the Fairy Dragon is too fast for the Gargoyle. If it was actually as slow or the same speed as the Gargoyle, it would be a great support for the Gargoyle. Unfortunately, it's extremely fast compared to the Gargoyle. Anyways, the best talent I would say for the Gargoyle is Wing Buffet, which is, it just increases its movement speed so it goes quicker. It will get to the enemy towers / boss quicker and deal its damage. You also have aerial superiority, which decreases damage from ground minis by 50%, which can be good in certain maps. And then you have Obsidian Statue, which is on death. It summons the statue with Taunt. Wing Buffet's generally the best, but the other two are actually good as well. This one doesn't really have any bad talents, but I would try to get Wing Buffet first. You know, use your red buttons to rotate your grid to try to get the talent that you want. Normally, just so you guys know, this is a tip in general with the game, is once you get an uncommon, you will unlock a talent, and it will drop a random talent, normally in your next refresh or red button rotation. If you don't pick that one and you keep rotating, eventually you'll see the other ones, and you'll eventually get the one you want. But yeah, hitting the red button to get a talent is generally actually useful when you have uncommon minis that you're trying to get certain talents for, just so you guys know. I also like to do only 1 to 2 uncommons at a time, and then use this strategy to rotate through the grid. It just gets you increased chances of getting you what you want. So, we have 6 more minis to talk about. All of these minis... See, the thing with Undead is all their minis are actually pretty useful. That being said, we're going to talk about the Ghoul next. We're on our 2 gold cost tank here. He's not bad. He pretty much is a slow-moving tank similar to the Abomination. Unfortunately, he can't hook or anything. But he does have a decent amount of health for 2 gold. So he's a nice, cheap tank. When he kills an enemy, they turn into like a powder, essentially. And he can eat them to gain more health, which he pretty much will stop in place and then start to consume as he's taking damage, which actually heals through a lot of damage. The best talent for him is Bone Shield, which is when he cannibalizes, he is granted armored for 10 seconds, which makes him even more tanky. So he sits there, he becomes armored as he eats and heals, and everything shoots him, and hopefully he survives through it with his armored while your backline takes out the enemy team. He also has Ravenous, which he, you know, when he cannibalizes, he gains Bloodlust. The issue is when he's cannibalizing, he's not really moving or attacking, so it's a kind of a weird buff. And then he also has Taste for Blood, which he deals 50 additional damage to enemies who are below 50% health. Neither of those are really good talents. I would actually say Taste for Blood's probably better than Ravenous, but Bone Shield's generally the one you want because the whole purpose is to drop a 2 gold tanky unit that takes some hits for you. That's what this guy does right here. Next we're going to talk about Meat Wagon. Meat Wagon, again, is a very interesting and good unit, but is a niche unit. This is used against a lot of bosses and raids, similar to the Banshee. Most of the time you will not use this unit until later gameplay, and you use it to outrange like towers and stuff. You can use it to backdoor, essentially. It's 3 costs, so it doesn't cost a ton. It outranges pretty much everything. It has Bombard, and its best talent is just increasing its range, which is Filet Trebuchet, which just makes it shoot even farther. You can use this to outrange towers and use it to go like do a separate push a lot of the time. And if you have a big enough push in one lane, a lot of the time the computer AI won't counter the Meat Wagon on the other side. It will just ignore it, so you can just pretty much bombard a turret or tower and take it. But again, that requires that you have a good push on the other side going. The other talents are not worth talking about, but Grease Gears is the one where you gain Fury, would probably be the next best. Next we're going to talk about the Necromancer. This guy, I like him, but I would like to like him more than I do. The issue is for 4 gold, I don't think he's strong enough. I think he is usable, but he's kind of a niche unit as well. There's certain situations where you're going to want him. He's one of the few ranged undead that can hit air. As you can see, like most of our guys here cannot attack air. The Gargoyle ignores air and goes for towers. The Banshee can possess units but can't actually attack on its own. And everything else we've spoken about other than leaders are melee or can only hit ground. The Necromancer is like one of the 2 minis that you can use from Undead that actually hit air. It deals elemental damage and it summons 2 skeletons. The best talent to get is Jeweled Skulls, which summons skeletal mages instead of skeletons. The skeletal mages have range. It's very short, but it does ice damage, which freezes or slows the enemy. And essentially this just gives you a nice little backline behind whatever tank you're dropping in front of it to push forward. The good thing about the Necromancer is if your tank dies and it survives, sometimes the skeletons will actually tank for the Necromancer, and he'll just keep summoning skeletons to replace them. The other two talents to talk about are Cult of the Damned, which is on death. It summons a skeleton, and then Breath of the Dying, which is... Oh, sorry. Breath of the Dying is the one where he summons a skeleton when he falls. And then he has Cult of the Damned, which is when he takes out a enemy minion, he summons a skeleton from it. Neither of those are relatively useful in a sense of... There's no niche gameplay that you use those on. Normally you just want to go with Jeweled Skulls. Tends to be the best talent for him. Then we have Plague Farmer, which is a Cycle 2 Cold mini. Super good, has nice range. It's poisonous, so it's good against armored units. And it's just cheap to throw in your deck, and it is useful. So normally the best talent for the Plague Farmer is Splashing Pumpkins, which is increasing its range by 1 and doubling the splash area. This allows the Plague Farmer as well to outrange towers. You can actually backdoor bosses and towers with the Plague Farmer. He's a cheaper version of the Meat Wagon. He doesn't do it as fast, but he does stack poison. And if they drop anything that is on the ground, like a ground target, it will get potentially hit by the bombardment that's getting hit by the tower and get poisoned, so at least when they kill him, you did some damage to the unit. I do like Plague Farmer. He's one of my favorite undead units to use to get a nice cheap unit in the undead cycle for the leadership slots that you get. I use him a lot with the Splashing Pumpkins. Everything else that he has is not really worth talking about. You get Splashing Pumpkins, you'll probably never change the talent. The other two talents are just to level him up. So next we're going to talk Skeleton Party, and then we're going to talk skeletons. So, Skeleton Party is super good. I shouldn't say it's super good. It's very useful in endgame. It's also useful just for controlling things in like PvP and stuff. You can drop it on bridges, and then it will attack things below them. It just has a lot of different uses. So it's an unbound mini, so you can put it anywhere on the map. It's 4 gold, which isn't bad for what you get out of it. They deal elemental damage and physical damage, technically. And they have Frost, which is from the mages. So you have the 5-man talent, which makes a skeleton tank, a rogue, a priest, and 2 mages. That's a pretty solid push. My favorite is Ritual of Rhyme, which summons 5 skeletal mages who guard the deploy location, which again I like to drop on bridges and things, so when the enemy walks underneath and they just start getting pounded by slowing frost bolts, it tends to do very well. But those are the 2 talents you're going to pick from. Ritual of Rhyme is my favorite. It has a lot of endgame uses as well in raiding and in dungeons, whereas 5-man is probably your overall... When you're not using them to defend, you're probably using 5-man. The issue is I think Ritual of Rhyme, just because of the way it works, it just tends to be better for the Skeleton Party. You also have the skeletons here, which is last but not least. They are also unbound, but they summon physical, very weak skeletons. The best talent to get with this is probably Exhume, which is when you deploy it near a meeting stone or tower, you get 2 additional skeletons, which gives you 5, I believe, if I remember correctly. And then you also have Questing Buddies, which 1 skeleton gains armor, 1 gains resist, and 1 gains stealth. That one's an okay if you're kind of trying to make better skeletons. And then you have Cackle, which just makes your weak skeletons taunt and die. It would have been cool if they gave Cackle like a damage reduction. That probably would have made that a little bit better. Like give Cackle, they, take 25% reduced damage while cackling or something for 3 seconds. But yeah, you're pretty much going with Exhume with them, and then probably Questing Buddies is your next one, and then Cackle is just, you get it to level them up later when you hit Epic. But yeah, that's the Undead Minis. I hope this helps some of the new players out there. I do really enjoy Rumble. It's one of my favorite mobile games. I just enjoyed the tower pushing of it. And I hope this helps new players, so that's why I'm doing these. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next one. We're going to be doing the Cenarian Minis, and then we're going to be doing the Beast. We're almost done. Alright, catch you guys next time.